Hey guys, today is Wednesday, April 6th. It is just under 24 hours from when we recorded happy hour episode number 37 on Tuesday, April 5th. And I wanted to make this as adding a bit of clarity and also an apology for the way things went down last night. I've used this platform and have tried to both, obviously use it as a opportunity for me to have fun and talk to people I wouldn't maybe normally get to talk to on a regular basis, promote good racing, promote changes for the sport that I think are good and that look out for the everyday racer to the top guy to the grassroots guy to the guy that races once every 6 months at his local club. And we've amassed a following I couldn't even imagine at this point. And we haven't always been perfect. We've made mistakes here and there. There's things that I've wanted to do better and haven't, but I felt that this was necessary to make an explanation and clarity video and apology for the way that things went down last night on happy hour number 37 because I set us up to fail. I didn't handle the situation well. I insinuated some things that had no merit or ground. And unlike everything that I just stated prior to, where we've used on track incidents, brought drivers in, talked to people about, what we want to see out of racecraft and how I want to improve things in the sport, from Brandon Lemke and Race Liberante to highlighting the K senior class that has had a number of major crashes in the lead pack that have been caught on the live broadcast over the last few months. Um, but that wasn't how things went down last night. Um, I could chalk it up and say that, I was busy and didn't put enough prep time in, or I was lazy, or I was tired, or I was run down. And, that doesn't matter. There's no excuses that matter. I messed up. There's no way around it. I set up an unjust courtroom with one driver involved in an incident in case of Ryan Norberg and the other driver involved in the incident not in it, Carson Morgan. Now, Carson and Cole, they, announced it publicly now, so I can say it, that this was going to be their last weekend and they won't be racing karts, in the near future, which is unfortunate because both of those kids are really good kids, are super talented in the sport. And Carson's probably one of a generational talent, a class that is very small. And there are very few people, less than, 0.001% of everyone in motorsports that has accomplished or ever will accomplish what he's accomplished at 14 years old behind the wheel, including setting a record level number of junior wins on the national stage in a streak that ended, when he moved up into senior, and then in his first senior race qualified on the front row at Supernats and K100 and won multiple heat races. He's not, if you just listen to last episode, you think he's the dirtiest driver in the world, and he's not. In fact, in every instance this year, he's either been just there racing or taken out, going all the way back to the Supernats where a racing incident ultimately of him trying to race hard, Connor Zillis trying to race hard, collected both them together, and then him and Thomas Anaziata wrecked with half a lap to go. You go back to, other K incidents we've talked about, Jeremy Fletcher and Cole Morgan in February, Aiden Rudolph in February, or Jeremy and Cole in January, sorry. And then, we've gone to USPKS Orlando with Race Liberante and Brandon Lemke. And then we used that incident and the whole weekend they had to bring them both onto the show to say their pieces equally. And I did a lot more prep for that one. I called both of them for 30 minutes on end on Monday, said, hey, I want to bring you guys on. I want to talk about this. I know you guys have already personally talked Sunday night and maybe come to somewhat of a center ground and somewhat of a respect and resolution between each other. I think that's great. And I think it's a great example to, show some unity for the sport and say, hey, like these were some bad driving decisions on both parts and some bad conduct held on both parts. And you guys can say your piece of what you thought on the weekend and where you're at now. And we can move forward and use it as a great spotlight of how you can turn a bad situation and a bad result into something good. And knowing that Carson wasn't going to be running anymore, I didn't want to bother him with the show last night, which was silly because if I'm going to have only one side of the story on, then that's not taking the responsibility that a platform that has grown to the size that we have seriously and taking that with the weight that I should. And it's not lost on me how far our reach is, how impressionable we are to the next generation and the current generation of drivers in our sport, from kids to adults. and how big of a difference that can make in anybody's company, any kart shop, any team, any series. I don't take that lightly. And I've felt that up until everything last night, I've done my best. And, I can lay my hat on every episode that I felt like we've said stuff that's been for the good of the racer and for the good of the sport, and tried to fight for what's right, and highlight the good, and point out the bad in a light that's positive and constructive. And that wasn't the case last night. Um, I if you go through the show, um, and went through it, you would think that Carson Morgan yelled at Nick Bruckner because Nick Bruckner has cancer, or that he's the dirtiest driver in the world, and neither of those things are anywhere close to true. Again, he's a generational talent, and he's a really good kid. He let his emotions get the best of him, was frustrated that probably in one of his last races that he thinks maybe ever, ended up in a DNF in a wreck where he thought Nick closed him off, and Nick didn't think that he was there. And you can look at different angles and think what you think. um, it's an aggressive corner to pass in, and I said that on the show, and I'll stand by that. It's an aggressive corner to pass in, the corner that he attempted to pass him. It's tough to pull those passes off. He ended up pulling a pass off on Ryan, which Ryan had in his clip, and we showed it, and I think we blew that up over proportions. Where he tried to pass him into the last corner, he got into him a little bit, but in the way that he did, I mean, he kind of side potted him and it turned him sideways. I've always said that if you are passing down the inside of a guy, if the guy comes down and you go tire to pod and it just bounces him off, then you were there. And in the way that they kind of came together, it kind of turned Ryan sideways, but at the same time, it did kind of bounce him off. So it was in this kind of weird gray area of how far alongside he got. The frustration for Ryan was that Ryan was coming through the field and had passed him the corner before. And so instantly passing him back is just kind of passing just for the sake of passing, which we even kind of touched on a little bit in the show about, X30 and KA racing be more about restraint, because it's very easy to pass. And you can, if you want to, you could throw the race away by just battling with a guy. And that happens a lot. And we talk about it a lot, that some of the junior drivers and mini drivers that are less experienced will pass, and they'll bring more drivers into the pack because they'll waste so much time and so on. So, but that's, not important. What important is, he didn't go and intentionally clean Ryan out. He may have intentionally tried to pass him. He may have done whatever, but we'll never know because I didn't bring him on the show and I didn't give him the chance to defend himself. I had his team owner, Ryan Perry, on, but that's not a one-to-one situation. I also let that conversation between Ryan Perry and Ryan Norberg get way too nasty and personal, and I tried my best to curb it. Well, my best wasn't good enough in that situation because I set them both up, without having a long conversation with both of them on how the show was going to go. And again, I can make excuses all day and it doesn't make a difference because the outcome was the outcome and the impact was the impact. And it's not fair to either one of them. And everybody left frustrated, and it didn't do good. Last night's show didn't do good. And it slandered a driver that is an unfortunate loss that we're not going to see around the racetrack. Not because of last show, like I said, him and his brother Cole won't be racing. He's got a budding football career as he's working his way through high school. And, that's another topic for another day, but we didn't handle it well. We portrayed Carson in a light that he didn't even get the opportunity to defend himself. And that's not fair. That's not right. And I'm sorry to Carson, to his parents, Heather and Joe, who have been really respectful in the conversations that we've had throughout the day, me and Joe and me and Carson. And I watched through the show last night. I watched through it again this morning. I've been sick all day, and I've been trying to make sure that I do this right here. There was also one other point in the show where Braden had brought up that he lost respect for Carson because he saw the way he won a race at Newcastle last year in X30 Junior. It wasn't even Carson that did the move that he's talking about. And I thought that during the show, and I didn't speak up on it, but I wasn't 100% sure. But it wasn't. No, it absolutely wasn't. Again, I should have prepped more, should have made sure that I did my research like I normally try to do, and fit in the schedule we have to make sure these shows come off well. But that wasn't him. Again, he hasn't done, intentional crashing moves. He's aggressive. Everybody's aggressive, and everybody makes mistakes. I'm not saying he's a perfect driver. I'm not saying Ryan's a perfect driver. And Ryan Perry, referenced the 2017 SCUSA Pro Tour when he was talking to Norberg, which is a video for another topic as well. But in that season, there was intentional crashing on a lot of parts that included a lot of the drivers in that championship, including Norberg. It got really nasty. I mean, it was Hamilton versus Verstappen level. So with all that being said, like I said, I wanted to make this video to set that right, because it's not enough for me to go and personally apologize to those families. We have a responsibility to tell the truth and to use our platform for good. And like I said earlier, I feel like we've done that in every opportunity we've been given. And I didn't do that last night for a multitude of reasons. I let the show get away. I let myself get overwhelmed. I didn't plan for the show well. And I didn't lay out a fair and neutral ground and be a good moderator and a good third party. So I own that. I have to live with it. I can cut the clips, which I will. And I can apologize, which I am and have, and will continue to do so, to Ryan Perry, who runs a great operation, works super hard, just like every other team owner. To Norberg for as well, putting him. It's not fair to him to put him on a one-sided deal because it still looks bad too. But especially to Carson Morgan, who, like I said, I consider a good friend. He's a good kid. He's a great driver. He's better than I'll ever be. And to, his family for making it seem like that. So with that said, guys, I'll see you guys next week. For those of you that will continue to tune in, I hope that, I don't hope that. I know we won't make the same mistake, the same situation again. I know I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I'll never make mistakes, but the best I can do is the same that I ask of any driver that we bring up, or any team, or any series, or anyone in the sport, that we may constructively say, hey, I don't think what you did was right. And that's to own it, to learn from it, and to try and not repeat it. And so that's what I need to do, is to make sure that if I want to cover this stuff and I want to bring to light, not wanting to crash go-karts and wanting to have clean racing and wanting to have an open dialogue about that, I need to do the job and the requirements needed to set up an environment for that kind of conversation and that. So again, with everybody, I'm not in this to try and incite controversy. I've always said from the beginning, with what we're trying to do, is to build drivers up, to build the superstars in the sport, to let you get to know them and pull the curtains back and get to see the inside of the teams. And we tore a kid down last night for isolated incident that we've seen worse already this year. We've seen Hall of Fame NASCAR, F1, IndyCar drivers all intentionally crash and have even worse deals. So it was wrong. It wasn't fair. And I'm sorry about that. And I'm sorry to all the KC team that are dragged along with how that went down. And they're not responsible. That's all on me, all on Xander, all on my shoulders. So we'll learn from it. I'll learn from it. Sorry, not we. We'll do better because we have to, because we owe it to this awesome sport, the awesome racing that it provides, to do it justice. Thank you, guys.